Okay. All right. So what we are meant to cover in this class is primarily social media design. Some of you might have seen a bunch of designs on social media. I have Canva opened up here. It's quite easy for you to just click on social media, and then you see a bunch of templates, right? You see a bunch of templates, right here. When you click on social media, you can select different brands like Facebook, Instagram. These are like some of the templates we have from Canva. Not as it used to be anyways, just looking very looking very basic. There are some additional ones you can get when you're on the paid plan. I am not using a paid Canva account right now, but I'm sure if you have a paid account you would even see more, right? Whether you're going to work with Canva or you're working with any other design tool such as Photoshop or even Figma. I tend to work with Figma. I love working with Figma. I'm going to show you some samples. We're going to design a sample, flyer, and then I would also give you tips. I think that's the most important thing, right? The tips I am going to share would help you be a better designer. So regardless of the tool, regardless of the platform, understanding those tips would really help you. I just want you to understand that those tips are actually very important, and if you are able to learn and master those tips, trust me, it will be much easier for you to work on designs that are compelling. Okay. So let's start talking about those tips. I think the first one would be layout. And by the way, please apologies for my voice. I have been talking since morning, so it happens to me most times. Let me start by creating a single frame. Now please don't pay attention to the design tool, right? We will definitely share materials that you can use to learn more design tool. I am very much aware that the design tool that some of you are familiar with is Canva. I think that was what you were taught in the last class. Okay, so I hope you guys can still see my screen. Please ask the others to join here if they are unable to join. I'm still waiting to admit more people. Ask them to join here if they're unable to join. Give me a second. Oh, I see. Sorry, I am already. Okay. Okay. So yeah, the first thing here is the layout. Okay, and this is exactly what we mean by layout. I'm going to keep this, bold. Please feel free to ask questions. Feel free to ask questions so that we'll be able. Please copy the link from this call, share on WhatsApp. Like I mentioned, Mercy, copy the link from this call and share on WhatsApp. Okay, so like I mentioned, the first thing here is layout, and layout basically describes the arrangement of elements in a space. How do you get to arrange elements in a space, right? If you understand layout, it's easier for you to arrange elements that that people would see and love. Now this particular thing would actually fit very well under your social media designs or any type of design. So I don't want you to think of this from a limiting angle. It's not just for social media. It works across multiple design platforms, right? I'll give you an example here. So we have a simple layout. This is a simple layout. Just to you, this might just be like a square or something, right? How do you get to arrange elements here that make it look appealing, right? You probably say, okay, I want to have my texts appear here around the top. I want to have an image at the bottom. Now these are just, I'm using boxes to explain. This is layout, right? I have text on top. I have a very bold image here. Now, can this work for social media? I will show you. Okay, so let me show you another layout. You have another layout example where you say, I want my text to appear somewhere here. I want my image to appear maybe somewhere around here, from here down to the bottom here. I want my image to appear bold here. I want my text. This would be my text area, right? So let's use some text to describe this. So this is image. Please pay attention to layout. It is very important that you understand how layout work. This is let's say title and description. Okay, so here we have title and description, and here we have our image. This is an example. We'll get to put in the titles and description. I think someone has a question. Yeah, Miriam, please. You want to say something? Go ahead.
Good evening.
Yes.
I can see screen.
You
I don't
can't.
know if I'm the only one.
Oh, really? You can't see my screen?
Yes. I don't know if I'm the only one.
Okay. Hassan,
I can see it here.
okay. Let me
Oh,
just
that
stop.
means it.
Yeah, let me just stop sharing and
I
share
can.
again. Yeah, I'm sharing again. So Miriam, please confirm if you can see it now. I'm sharing again. Okay, I think Hassan can see it. Taiwo, can you see my screen? Okay, I think Miriam is trying to leave and join again, but let's proceed. Okay, Taiwo can see my screen too. Awesome. All right. So this is the first. Okay, I think Miriam is back. Miriam, please confirm if you can see it now.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. Okay, so this is the second layout, right? You have your title and description, right here. You then have your image here. Now, if you notice, I'm actually just focusing on title, description, and image. There are other things that come in when it comes to social media design. An example would be your brand identity. Probably you want that to sit at the top, where you have your logo and probably your website, right? So I'm just going to put this here and say you have your logo, and maybe here you can have your website. You can even have social media links, which is very important too. You have links to like other social platforms, right? So say you are designing for Instagram, you want to probably show the link that you have for X, for LinkedIn, and a couple of other platforms. Okay, so I'm just going to reduce this a bit. Let's just take this down a bit. Now remember that this can be applied on any platform, not just Figma. I am currently doing this design with Figma. Figma is it's a very easy to learn. But if you're using what's it called? If you're using Canva, you're using Photoshop, there are a bunch of tools you can use for design. So this is applicable, across these platforms. Okay, try to understand the concepts. The concepts are, very important. And when you master these concepts, it's easy for you to apply it anywhere. So take a look at this. We have the logo and the website. The second assumption is that you want to probably show maybe like a phone number. Yeah, so I'm going to put this here. I would say this is our socials. Socials, I'm referring to like your handle and the other platforms. And here I'll put contact, let's say phone number. This can be email though, right? It can be email. You try as much as possible to show enough information, right? It doesn't have to be too much, it has to be enough. Okay, I thought someone was trying to join now. So it doesn't have to be too much, it has to be enough. We're going to convert these things you're seeing right now into actual flyers. Okay, and I'm going to do it fast, but first off, you understand the context of what goes into the layout, which is very important. Let me move this call to another screen, so it's easier for me to, I'm going to move this to a different screen, so it's easy for me to admit people without yeah, okay. All right, so I see it's easy for me to admit people without yeah, look, your camera is still turned on, you can turn it off. Okay, all right. So still on the concept of layout, right? Still on the concept of layout. This is the first one I mentioned. You can have your image. I mentioned you can have your image right here. You can have title and description. You can have your logo. You can have your website link. You can have your phone number. You can have your social links, right? Look, please, to avoid distractions, you have to let me, okay, yeah, don't watch. Okay, I'll do that from here. All right, so you have the first layout where you put in your title, description, you put in the image, you put in phone number and socials. We're going to convert this into a sample design. I'm going to show you another layout. Another layout is when we choose to flip what we have here, right? Which you guys must have seen in other brands, or you have seen other brands do. You flip what you have here. So I'm simply going to swap it this way. So right now you have title and description at the bottom, you have image here, and then you still have your logo, you still have, let's just call this the header, right? You still have your header, and then you still have the footer. So the footer is made up of these guys, right? The header is made up of this. You can decide to have your logo at the bottom. It can be at the top right. It can be at the bottom right. You know, it depends, right? It depends on what works best, you know, for that particular design. Okay, so this is not fixed. Understand that this is not fixed, but then you need to learn to play with layout. You know, this is what I teach a lot of people. Play with layout. Playing with layout means let me try different options and see what works best. Okay, I'm going to show you, you know, something here. I can choose to go the route of having my image fill the entire, you know, the entire canvas, right? So I have my image fill the entire canvas like this. So my image is right here, and I can have the title and description sit at the corner here, right? So what you're seeing is title and description. It will sit at the corner on top of the image. So I would show you how you apply that. Okay, these are different types of layouts that you can work with when it comes to designing for social media. If we try to pull up, let's pull up Pinterest, for example. You're going to see some of these templates. Let's look for social. Come on, I don't need to log in here. I don't want to log in. Ah, man. Okay, that's quite interesting. I didn't want to log in. Let me pull up another. Okay, let's see. Pinterest. I can't log in on the other profile. I think I'm logged in here already. Okay, so I'm going to quickly search for social media flyer. All right, great. So let's take a look at some of these samples and let's try to compare, you know, to what I was showing you earlier. So you take a look at this, you see the logo at the top, you see text up here, you see the image here, and then you see the footer. Can you see that pattern? All right, I'm going to show you the second one now. So if you look at the second one, you see you have image, you know, at this side, you have the text and description here, you have the top. I mean, you still have this is the header basically, you know, but of course, just like I mentioned, you can have it at the top right as well. And then here you have the footer, contact information. So focus on the patterns, right? See, we have another sample here. You have the image at the left, right? You have your text and description on the right, and then you have the footer, and then you also have the header. Note these things, right? Header, the footer. So the header shows maybe like, you know, your brand information, okay? The footer shows contact information and maybe socials, right? In the center there, you can actually choose to have your image on the left or on the right, you know, at the bottom or at the top, depending on how you want to structure your content. So sometimes, you know, there's some pattern that works best. So take a look at this. You see, we still have the logo here at the top, which is the header. Here you have LinkedIn brand and LinkedIn branding and design service. You have the image on one side, you have the text on. I mean, I don't like this, but this works as well, right? You know, it depends on what works for you. You still have the footer at the bottom. So by the time you keep looking at more designs, you just realize that wait, this is really a pattern thing, right? You know, image on this side, footer on this side, text and description on this side. You move on to the next one, the same pattern. You're seeing the same pattern everywhere. Now that you understand the pattern, you'll begin to see that pattern everywhere. Okay. Pinterest is a good way, it's a good place to get inspiration because, you know, we have a lot of amazing designers that have put up designs, you know, they share it here as well. This is the other pattern I mentioned. You have the header, you have, you know, the title and description, you have the image. Now this one, they didn't put any footer, right? So obviously, if you look at this flyer, you see there's no contact information. It's clear that there's no contact information. So when you keep browsing, you know, platforms like Pinterest, platforms like Freepik, you know, you begin to see all these things. The next thing you begin to ask yourself is, okay, where do I get the font, the type of font? Where do I get, you know, the images? Okay, we're going to discuss that as well. Where do you get the font? Where do you get the images? You know, we'll come back to this because I will show you how to, you know, work on something simple. Probably clone one of these, you know, just to see how easy it can be once you've understood these patterns. Okay, so back to this place. The first thing I mentioned there is layout, which, you know, we have been looking at. The next thing I'm going to mention here is typography. Okay, so typography is the next thing. All right, so let's see. Okay, so we're talking about the selection sizing. This was supposed to be a sample. Okay, we're talking about the selection, the sizing, the spacing, and arrangement of the type. So the type they are referring to here is, the texts. Okay, when we say the type, we're referring to text. In graphics design, UI UX design, in a bunch of design types, when you hear type, it can actually mean maybe a classification, but most likely they are probably referring to the font you used, right? The size of the font, the spacing you have in between. Okay, and I'm going to show you a couple of things you have to note about typography. Let me write something here. I'm going to say my name is Marv, something as simple as this. I'm going to drop it a bit. Okay, so my name is Marv. My name is Marv can be written okay, hold on, I'm going to use this instead. So I'm going to simply say I love you, right? So this might look simple. Okay, hopefully I can get let's see if I can see some weird fonts just to show you how typography can actually alter the way you feel about something. Okay, I'm trying okay, you know what, I'm just going to go to a type website, and this is the website I'll be recommending to most of us as well. So I'm going to go to a type website called let's see. Okay, let's start with Google Fonts. I'll show you two font websites. One is Google Fonts, the other one is Da Font. Now there are so many websites where you can try different fonts and play around with those fonts. These links will be shared with you. So yeah, just in case I forget, you can remind me in the chat, on WhatsApp. I'll share these links with you. And of course, the recording will also be shared with you. I'm recording this locally because I can't record with this my Google account. So yeah, so take a look at this. You see we have a bunch of types, right? Each typography has if what we call a font family. They also have font names, right? We also have, yeah, we can even say we have font style, font type, font weight. I'll be explaining some of these things as we proceed. Let me take them down so that we don't get to forget them. I'm going to copy this. Let's just put it here. So we have the font name. So the font name, is a unique identifier for that name, for that font, unique identifier for the font. Okay. So for example, this font you're seeing that I am using here, it's called Inter, right? It's called Inter. You don't have to master the names of this font right now. Any platform you use will give you different fonts. You'll see a drop down, you click on it, and you can select from the category of fonts that they provide, right? We have different fonts. We have some fonts that are bold. We have some fonts that are weird, you see. When I select any font, it keeps changing from there, right? I think this is an example of what I wanted to even show. So imagine you have I love you written but with this font. I'm going to select that font, Jolly, written with this font. It's not looking as fun as it should be. Anyway, some people can even see this and say it's fun. Let me show you from this website instead. So I'm simply going to let's look for something a bit weird. Okay, I think I could search here, horror. Let's search. Okay, so I have a font like this, and then I write I love you with this font. Imagine this font maybe painted in red, for example. you know I know most of you will be like, what kind of love is that? You want to kill me and you're saying you love me. Maybe you add those of you that watch horror movie, you add a little bit of exclamation at the end, and then you are telling somebody I love you with this font. The person will not want to meet you anywhere, right? Aha. You can use fonts to actually describe the emotion on a particular design, the font and the color. We'll get to color shortly, right? But this is just an example of how not to use the wrong font when communicating something else. So from the category we have here, you don't want to write I love you with any of these fonts except you mean it. And what do I mean? Except you mean the font, the meaning of the font, not the I love you. Except you mean what you are writing. You want to love the person, but in a terrible way. Okay, so these fonts are definitely not for writing I love you. Okay, let's go back and let's look for some fun fonts. I'm going to search for love, right? So this is an example, and then I say I love you. Okay, so submit. Well, I mean, yeah, it looks fun, right? Love should be fun. That's what we think, or I think, not we. That's what I think love should be, right? So when you see, a beautiful font, this is what it looks like. This is lovely, right? This is not scary like the others. And you even have more. So I can come in here. I love you. Just submit that, and you see something, as beautiful as this, right? This looks good. This is something you want to see maybe on a Valentine's card, right? You don't want to see this on. So imagine, let's think about it this way. We are hiring. Well, I mean, not bad. Thank God it doesn't have the love sign, right? Not bad, but not professional either. Okay. I was thinking you were going to see the love sign. We are hiring with love. Some of you will be like, what are these guys hiring for? You have to be very skeptical. Let's try this weird one. We are hiring, and then okay. I mean, I'm seeing a bit of love here. We are hiring. I don't think I will understand this. If you put this on a flyer and you tell me we are hiring, well, it's not going to look. I mean, it's not going to be easy for me to understand, right? So it's going to look very weird. Okay. So whenever you're trying to communicate something, there should be, a good font for it. There should be, right? You have to ask yourself, what is the right font for this? So let's assume I'm doing a design for maybe like a food brand. And by the way, I have a bunch of designs here that I've done for, food brands in the past. I'm just going to show you some sample designs. Let's take a look at this sample design I did this evening. So this is going to open up. Now, this is a font. I'm using this to communicate a message, right? Posting every day is killing your brand. Okay. And then you see from the image, you see like I'm talking about social media, obviously, likes, this is social media, it's clear. And I begin to write, right? Consistency without strategy is just noise. I mean, from this write up, it's easy for you to note that, some of these are not clear. Some, like the strategy is very clear. So why am I focusing on that, right? It begins to drive your attention to, oh, strategy. Strategy is probably the main thing that is being communicated here, right? This is a bunch of algorithms don't reward frequency, they reward, engagement. Tempos that spark zero conversation do less than one post that starts a movement, right? So I'm trying to point on important things. What should you do? Post less, say more, right? Post less in red. We'll talk about colors very soon, and how colors also impact your. This is a social media design, right? It's meant to go in as a carousel. Okay, so look at this design. You'll notice one thing: it's just typography and highlights, right? I select a particular color, highlight the text on that color, make some dim and some are brighter. I am also using color to communicate. Okay, and I have a bunch of these designs here for different brands. Okay, so we'll get to explore some of them later, but for now let's try to continue. So I was talking about the font name, right? And I mentioned that the font there is a unique, the font name is a unique identifier, for that font. Just like when we're looking at this page here, each of these fonts have a name. When you click on the font, you see the name of the font. Each of these fonts have a name, all right? And you can download the font, you can install it on your computer, and you can use it. Each of these fonts have a name. And then we have categories, for fonts, okay? So when you look at this side, you see we have fancy fonts, we have, fonts with foreign look, we have Gothic fonts, bold fonts, medieval kind of fonts, right? From the ancient days, okay? And then you see different types of maybe you watch some of these movies, you see some of these kind of fonts. Yeah, these are medieval fonts, right? We have modern fonts. Yeah, these are like some kind of Gothic kind of fonts. Let me come down to comic fonts. If you are designing for kids, for example, comic fonts are great. If you have any experience looking at magazines, Spider-Man, yeah, you watch maybe some comic movies, these are some nice fonts you can download and use to design things that would spark such such interest in kids. You know, if you use the same font that is used in a comic movie, for example, or a comic magazine, and you use that font to design, you know, it's most likely you are trying to attract. I think Wemimo, your camera, you have to turn it off, please. Let me help you with that. Some of you make these mistakes on calls. Please don't do that. Okay, so if you design with, let's say, this font, this is Badaboom, that's the name of this font. You design with this font. When kids see this font, you know, they sort of recognize the font. It's easy for them to recognize, honestly. It's easy, right? Bouncy. They love it. Now, imagine using this font and then posting. So you use this font and you say, how to win, you know, business clients that can pay you 100 million naira, and then you post it on LinkedIn with this font, bouncy. You know, I mean, it looks weird. Yes, there are some buyers, you know, on LinkedIn that will like it. I learned that grammar from Amaka. You know, once you are very old and you're doing baby things, Amaka will call you Agbaya. Okay, so there are some Agbaya that would like it, but I think, you know, for professional folks, somebody sitting in a office, you know, that earns 10 million naira a month, wearing suits, you know, and receiving very cold, you know, Russian temperature AC. When they see this on your page, they will most likely unfollow you, right? Because they will say something is wrong somewhere. I don't know what it is, but something is wrong with this boy. Okay, so this, you need to understand when to use this font, right? This is for a flyer you're working on, maybe for kids, right? You're working on something professional. Yes, use a professional font. Okay, we have script fonts, by the way. These are script fonts. You know, if you are working on maybe like some sort of Valentine card, some sort of birthday card, you know, party kind of card. For most of you that might have also received maybe a wedding invitation. So on a wedding IV, you know, you see that they use, you know, like normal fonts for a bunch of things, but when it comes to writing the name or the fancy part of things, they use this kind of font, right? Let me show you. I'm going to search for like a wedding IV, right? So when you take a look at a wedding IV, let's use this for example. I'm going to zoom into this, right? So you see they are using, you know, standard Times New Roman, you know, kind of font, right? When they get to this part, they use that font, you know, because they're trying to mention the name. Sometimes they even use this to also write down, you know, additional details. They use this to write down additional details, you know, in the card, right? So just to, you know, buttress my point, you can see it right here. Okay. Why did they not use this kind of font for this place? Now let me tell you why. You are designing for clients, or you are probably designing for, you know, a bunch of people to read. Now this is serious business. Okay, you are going to share this with your pastor, you know, your boss, you know, maybe some of your clients, right? You want them to understand what we are talking about. Somebody is coming to spray you 1 million naira, and then you are writing in a font that they cannot read. Is something wrong with you? So you have to be careful. You have to make sure you are using, you know, the right font for that design. Okay. You don't want to write something that they can't read when you know that you are giving this to matured, you know, people, elderly people. They need to be able to at least understand what you have written there. Do you understand? So I'll give you another example. Let's say I am working on a brochure. I'm working on a brochure. I want to share this brochure with banks. Yes, I mean, we work on brochure. I'm going to show you a sample brochure. I think I should have one. I actually even shared one today, if I can remember. Okay, so this is a brochure. This is a sample brochure that we shared sometime. One of our brands too, you know, Kids Club. As a matter of fact, this is a good example. If I pull up this website, you know, take a look at Kids Club. So this is one of our brands, right? You know, where we teach children, you know, digital skills, soft skills. I mean, for those of you that are on the call, if you don't know this brand, you probably want to check it out for your younger folks, right? You know, check it out. It's very important that you have, you know, your younger, maybe your kids or your younger ones at home, you know, learning soft skills, business skills, you know, STEM, no code, programming. You know, these are things they don't teach in, you know, most schools. Yeah, and some of us, you know, we know the value of this thing, so we definitely want to share with other people. Okay, so look at this design. Okay, look at the fonts. Why did we not use, you know, those superhero fonts? Children are not going to visit this site. Most likely parents will visit the site. The fact that we are training children in this program, in this platform, doesn't mean we should come here and use fonts that parents will not see. If they are not seeing it, how will they pay us? They have to see it. So you need to understand the audience, you need to understand the target audience, and then you select the font that the target audience will understand. Okay, it's very important. It's very important. All right, now let's look at Top Universe, which is another brand of ours. Look at this brand. It's easy to understand the text, the structure, the layout. It has to be professional. Okay, now look at our website and also look at the layout and the structure. You see, the text is easier. We're not trying to do any maneuver on the character. Please read and understand, because you need to pay us. In fact, sometimes we make it very bold, so you don't come and say you can't see it. You must see it. Do you understand? This is typography at play here, right? We are making sure that you can see some of these things. Sometimes we try to play around with text, but you must understand the target, you must understand the audience. So I've shown you a couple of examples. This also applies to your social media designs, okay? And I would also get to show you some other examples. Let's go back to Pinterest and let me show you a Valentine card. Okay, so take a look at this Valentine card, right? I mean, we're talking about love here, okay? So happy, and then the Valentine is written with a language, or sorry, a text or a font that is not necessarily clear, but they believe that you get the point. I mean, this is the whole thing about graphics design and typography, right? It's not necessarily clear, but they believe you get the point. Okay. If you are in the office and you write something like this, this is, I mean, if your boss is a very a strict person, at first he will be shocked. It will have that assumption that maybe this Gen Z thing has destroyed the world, right? But it will also ask questions. Some boss that don't have time, maybe you just finished fighting with somebody at home, and then you are presenting a proposal for a 20 million naira contract, and you write with this font. Your job is at stake at that moment, right? So when you look at these designs, you see the choice of fonts. I have one other joke to tell you about this, right? They believe that you don't necessarily need to read this. Do you know why? Because love is blind. Okay, so that's my last joke there. Okay, let's go. All right, I was talking about some sample brochures. So this is an example of a brochure that was shared with a bank, right? So when you look at this, you see how clear it is, right? Proposal for partnership, clear text, clear description. This is a children brand, but we did not go the route of bringing in weird fonts regardless, right? We know we want the banks to read this. It has to be clear. This is design, right? What you're seeing here is design. Although this is brochure design, not necessarily, social media design, but we have to make it super clear. Okay, that's one thing you must understand. We would also talk about imagery. I know time has gone far. Most of you are probably sleeping off already, so we might not be able to finish this class because I actually have 10 points to share, right? So we might not be able to take all 10. Let me close some of these. So speaking about the font again, I said font name. Font name is unique. The unique font name that we have here is Inter. We have what we call font weight, right? So yeah, a font weight, we're talking about the how thick and bold is this font, right? So when you look at this section here, we have different weights. So we have the tiny weight. This is thin. Let me come down here. I'm going to create another one. Okay, so we have multiple weights. If I click on this, we have extra light. Now the weights are also characterized by the type of font or the face of the font you've selected. We have extra light, we have light, we have regular, we have medium, there are more, right? We have semi-bold, we have bold, we have extra bold, we have black. Black, happens to be the one with the highest weights. Okay, these weights can be characterized with numbers too, right? You don't need to pay any attention to that right now, but yeah, they are mostly characterized with numbers from 300, ranging from 300 down to 900. The highest weight in most fonts, have a number of 900. So, I mean, do you need to know that? Not necessarily, but you need to understand that, depending on how bold your font is, what you are looking at there is what we describe as the weight of the font, okay? So keep that in mind. We also have the font size, all right? So when you're talking about the font size, of course, you guys know what that means, right? Size, okay? You can have a font size of, 12 px, 10, 11, 12, 48, 76, just like that. How big is the font, right? So I'm going to leave this at 64, okay? And also, depending on the design you're working on, you might want to use multiple sizes. Now, take a look at this sample social media flyer that we worked on. You see, stop doing this, please, right? You see, this is very bold. Font, when we're talking about typography can communicate a lot of things, right? This right now is communicating the importance, right? It also guides you on how to read the content on that flyer. If you see this flyer anywhere, stop doing this, please, is the first thing you are looking at. In fact, while you are looking at something else, you are still saying stop doing this, please. It is bold for a reason, because we want you to take a look at it. Do you understand? If this is not important, if this is not important, it will be moved. So let's just play around here. I'm going to move this out, somewhere. Okay, I'm going to make it very, very little. Drop it here. When you look at this design, you are most likely not seeing this at all, at least for the meantime, until you are done with this. You are not even seeing this at all, right? So when you are working with fonts, you can also use fonts to apply contrast, okay, on your design. That's something you must know, right? Same way, when you see this, typography is the first thing you are seeing, okay? If I want you to look at this, this is what you see. I can make this so small, put it somewhere here, put something else here, make that one even smaller. And I can guess how you are going to read this. I mean, it's simple, it's just the human brain, the way it is wired to work, right? I can put the most important thing here, join the class by 8 p.m., for example. I can just assume that this is the most important thing. But given the fact that it is small, it is no longer the most important thing to you, right? This text is the most important thing. If I say, hello, weight, let's just put weight. So if I say weight and I make that even bigger, for example, reduce this a bit, let's just drop this a bit. Okay, we'll talk about typography, the font color as well. We'll talk about the color. All right, I'm going to make this red. Now, when you look at this, if you are telling me that weight is not the first thing you are looking at, then you need to be studied, right? I mean, you need to be studied, because it means, you have broken the rule. Okay, so weight is the first thing you see, followed by typography. And typography, I mean, most people will not look at this if it's even like, let's say it's lighter than this, right? Let's drop it down to maybe like 20. Once you see weight and you are done with that, you're probably moving on to the next thing, or you would try your best to look at this. Now, it depends on the age group you are sharing this to, right? If you give this to my mom, the only thing she's seeing on this flyer or on this page is weight. If you tell my mom, what did you see? And she will say weight. If you say, but I wrote something else, she say, those things I cannot see. Whatever I cannot see is not there. Anything my mom cannot see is not on this design. That's the assumption. If you like argue, take it to court, Nigerian court, she might even win you, okay? Anything that my mom cannot see is not on the design, according to her. Do you understand? The only thing she will see here is weight. And she will tell you the only thing you wrote there is weight. I'm saying this because it has happened between myself and my dad one time, I used to, if you look at my books back then, I used to write, with cursive fonts, I did a lot of art, growing up. My dad is a fine art teacher, right? I did a lot of painting, drawing, molding, So when I write in my book, sometimes I just do like some, cursive kind of writing. You understand? So my dad would look at it. Whenever he sees those cursive writing, he will smile. He likes them, because, I mean, I learned it from him, from his books, from his lesson notes. So he loves seeing that I write those things that way. But when it's so tiny, right, he will say that was not on the book. He did not see that because, I mean, it's not clear at all. You will come and show him, but this is here. He will tell you, how do you expect him to read this? So the fact that it's too small for him, it means either this is not something he should be reading or he should be looking at, or it's not important at all. So please take it off. Do you understand? So you can use typography to communicate a lot of things. Okay. Back to this section, we have font size. Font color is also there. Okay. Someone is trying to join the call. Okay, admit. All right. So we have font color. I just mentioned color. Color is important, but let's not dive into that. Instead, I'm going to use what we call letter spacing. Some people don't understand how important this can be. Letter spacing is very good. It's very important. So when you look at the text, you look at the space in between. Each of these texts are letters, right? You look at the space in between. The space in between can determine, whether this is beautiful or not. Now, this is important for your flyer designs as well. So we are going very deep into like one area, but I'm going to stop here now and I'll move on to another area. Let's just spend, this call would end by 9:30 because we started very late, okay? So we have font size. This is letter spacing. By default, this is what it looks like, right? This is 0. By default, this is what it looks like. I can make this 10, for example. It's beginning to look ugly already. Just to show you this in practice, I'm going to create a very simple flyer here. Very simple. So let's just select a frame and I'm going to select social media. I will select Instagram post, for example. So here we have a simple Instagram post. I'm just going to bring, let's use this, duplicate this, bring it in here. I'm going to set the font color, put this back at 100. Okay, so I'm going to say typography, is great. Okay, so let's do typography like this is great. Okay, I'm going to use great, just like this. All right, so now I have 3 fonts here. Okay, 3 texts. Okay, okay, so I see we still have about 15 minutes. Okay, that's fine. So we have 3 texts here, and you see by default, this is what you get if you just choose to write. Okay, is great. This is what you get. Okay, now you have to ask yourself, what can I do to make this look beautiful? Right now it's just looking normal. It's looking very normal. What can I do to make this beautiful? All right, so let's try some things. The first thing we're going to try would be properly aligning this to the center, right? So that is this example you can see here. Just proper alignment. This is called text alignment, right? So you can align your text to the left, you can align your text to the right. There are cases where aligning your text to the right would look beautiful, right? Now let's just work with center. We've done this. Okay, what can I do next? Remember, by default, you have 0. So this is what it looks like by default. It is not compact, right? It's just looking very normal. How do you make something like this look beautiful? I'm going to create a duplicate and I'll start by making this, let's say -6. We tighten it very well. So the letter spacing you are seeing is now looking very tight. If I do -8, you see it comes closer again, right? And the truth is, from my experience designing, I've come to realize that, when you have tight, letter spacing, it looks more beautiful, right? Honestly, it does look more beautiful. So I'm going to leave it this way. I will say I'll duplicate this again and I'll write this separate. Why am I separating it? Because I want to apply different weights, right? I'm going to apply different weight. I'll start by, increasing the size of this guy, increase the size of this guy. Great. When I say great, I want to apply, some sort of weight to this, right? So I'm going to also close the line spacing. We have something called the line spacing. I'm going to close that line spacing. I can choose to, have some fun by duplicating this text. So you can't really see what is happening here, but there's a little bit of duplicates that happened, and I'm going to show you what that duplicate actually look like. Okay, so let me go ahead and apply some stroke and close the, this is what duplicating this font actually gave me, right? Just, duplicates. Okay, let's take that duplicate off, and I'm sure you'll be like, wait, we didn't understand that. I'll do that again. So I have a text that looks like this. I'm going to set a stroke. The stroke is just a line, around the text. I'll keep it simple, also closed, and I'm going to just duplicate once, right? After duplicating once, I would apply a white fill. Let's apply a white fill so it looks like this. Duplicate again and again and again and again. Now we have this kind of shadow-like, design, right? This is just typography. This is typography. You are working with some sort of, you're working with just duplicating the font, but giving it some sort of, deep shadow feel. right? I can apply different colors to each of this step, and it even gives you like, something more beautiful. Okay, so let's just take this back and leave it like this. So we have typography is great. The is here, I am just going to do something, something basic, let me apply maybe just a simple color, right? Typography is great. And then, within this color, I'm just going to put like a rectangle around it. Let's go in there and move this to the front. Okay, drop this here, and I'm just going to apply. As a matter of fact, I can literally just apply some sort of black there and make this white, right? And then I can pop this up a bit. This is typography. You can play with typography to give you a bunch of beautiful designs, right? You're already having something cool, right? If I put a beautiful background here, your design is ready. This looks beautiful compared to this, right? I used to have a friend, we call this beautiful types. Okay. I think there was a time where, typography is what people actually look at and consider you to be a good or a terrible designer, right? If you know how to play with types, trust me, you are already doing good when it comes to design. Okay. We are still using the same font face, right? Remember. So imagine you begin to, bring in like, amazing fonts. You're just playing around with things here to see what it really looks like. Okay. Because of time, I'm simply going to mention that we have layout, we have typography. Some of the other things we're supposed to cover, I want us to spend 10 minutes, just designing a simple flyer. But some of the other things we're supposed to cover range from, let me write them down. I'm going to write them down. And if you guys probably don't mind tomorrow, um, or maybe some other time, I don't want to take another person's, another instructor's session. So there are other things here you need to know, such as color, right? Teaching these things can actually take a lot of time. I would give you recommendations and tools. There are platforms where you can literally just open and get, some of us are not good. Some people are not good at color selection, right? So we have platforms that are used, to give you, better selections. You're not good at selection, but your brand colors, right? All you have to do is, go to like a palette generator, and this is what a palette generator looks like, right? Once I keep pressing spacebar, I'm seeing different palette colors that work together. And if I like it, I just have to take a screenshot or copy the color codes. These are color codes you see right here. And I can mix and match these colors to give me beautiful design. Once again, you know, it's about prioritizing the concepts, learn to prioritize the concepts, over just putting things together with the assumption that it will work. Okay, I'm going to show you something. Look at what we have here. Let's assume you are asked to apply a color to this, and you're asking yourself, how can I make color, work right here? Some people are trying to join the call, so I have to always navigate to that page. Sorry for the delay. All right, so let's just duplicate this. I want you to tell me if you have seen a pattern like this before. Maybe the brand we're working with, has this color. This is a food brand. Let's assume it's a food brand. You have a food brand that is working with red, like Coca-Cola or something, right? And you write, food. Let's say, all right, my love. By the way, I have a food brand called My Love. Okay, so I'm just going to call this My Love. Let me show you. So we have a food brand in Ogun State called My Love. So if I jump into, let's see, My Love Business Library. So you would see a couple of designs that we have done in the past. Okay, for this brand, My Love, right? You see how we play with font a lot, right? So, so this is love, sweet love, right? So this is love, sweet love. You see the way we play with types, right? If this isn't love, I don't know what else is. This is what I was trying to write that that made me get here, right? We have a bunch of things. We designed the apron. We designed yeah. So this is the logo of the brand, My Love Food. We even worked on what I call love letters. I wrote these love letters myself. So you see, Marvelous Solomon, My Love Foods family. Sweet boy. All right, my dearest. Don't worry, we'll come back to this some other day. Um, You see some of the designs we did and the way we worked with typography, right? This is like I think a groundnut, this kind of labels, right? Groundnut label. You see how we play with fonts. This is just typography at play here, right? And we have that for a lot of designs, peanuts. If you run a food business, you see you can actually do this by yourself, right? You can play around these things by yourself. On ripe plantains, I worked on these designs, ripe plantains, milky chin chin. By the way, I think my sister came up with some of these names. My job is to design, and my job is to receive a lot. Okay, um, if you like, make the chin chin milky, and people love it. I'll clap for you. When I receive a lot, I know that we are in business. All right. So this is a platform where you can get colors. I just mentioned that before, and I was trying to show you how you can play around with some of these colors when you are working on, your types. So just take a look at this. I will say my love is great. Just simple, you know, and probably choose, of course, a color like this. Definitely, if you have seen Coca-Cola, you are getting the vibe of Coca-Cola already. Although you don't want to use this for my love there, you want to look for something, a bit cursive. Another thing is when looking for fonts, it can take your time. Or it's not easy, honestly. I'm going to leave this for now, my love. Even if this is not my best or the best option, right? Just because of time, yeah, I'm complaining and trying to search for something. It's not working. It's okay. Yeah, let's work with this. So I'm just going to leave, my love is great. Probably use small letter for this. And probably I'll get some icon like, a love icon there, right? That's what I would most likely use in that place. And yeah, I can use, there's something we call, color variants. You can have color variants and, make it look extremely beautiful, extremely beautiful. So maybe I'm working on a purple design, something like this. What color variant can I use, right? I can say God is great. Okay, so you see this is not looking as beautiful as you want it to look, right? First of all, let's go ahead and align. Let's close the space like I've mentioned before. Let's do like 200, or let's do like 170, bring it closer. Okay, and then I can also select the same color but make it a bit light, right? God is great. Okay, so you see you are beginning to see beauty. Meanwhile, the initial design did not look as if you can make it beautiful. So you are selecting, these are we talk about color temperatures, color hue, right? These are things we'll cover, probably in the next class, or when we have like some time to talk about it. So color is important, right? You must really pay attention to color. We'll talk about visual hierarchy. I have actually mentioned a couple of things, that sounds and feels like visual hierarchy. But yeah, when we talk about it again, maybe in some other session, you would enjoy it even more. We have spacing and negative space, right? Negative space makes design beautiful. When you have a lot of clutter on your design, you no longer see the beauty. Okay, we'll talk about imagery and iconography. Man, imagery, I think anybody that have worked with me understand how much I love imagery, right? Just this design, just this text you're seeing can be transformed into a beautiful design just with good imagery. So I love FreePic. I love FreePic, and I'm going to show you what I can do with that simple text that I put in there. I'm going to select maybe like a perfume on a rock, you know, if there's something like that here. And trust me, on the internet, there are so many things. On the internet, you will find a lot of things. Fear will catch yourself. Okay. So you see, we actually have perfume on a rock, right? Which is weird, but yeah, I mean, is what I want, is what I searched for. So I'm going to select. Let's select this one, perfume on a rock. Okay. I'm just going to download this image. Ideally, you have to go the right way to download the image. I'm going the almost illegal way just to show you this example. And please don't say I taught you how to do that. Pay for it. Okay. So I just brought in this image here, and remember we have some text here, right? I'm going to copy this text, cut. Let's just cut them, bring it to the top. Make this big. We're talking about hierarchy. Reduce this a bit, make it white. Okay, probably bring it to the bottom. How many of you have seen expensive brands doing this? I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have seen this. You know, they do it a lot, right? To prove a point. Bring it back in there. Bring it down a bit. Awesome. All right. So, you know, they show like a couple of text here, you know, and this was initially just a text on a white background. I've not done anything special. I just reduced the font, right? That's all I did. I just reduced the font and then, you know, added that image in the background, okay? And I can even make this, you know, look better by maybe adding a little bit of overlay, right? And then, you know, doing something like this. This is looking like, you know, an ordinary circle, but then I can apply, and these are some of the things we'll talk about in some other class, you know. End in 2 minutes here, I can see that. I can just apply something on top of this. And then, you know, you have your beautiful design. So yeah, just, you know, as an example, um, unfortunately, we're not able to actually like design something, but yeah, I'll see you in another class. We'll pay attention to doing some sample designs. Thank you. Take care and have a wonderful evening. Um, Thank you. Bye, guys.